Hello, everybody. I'm Donna L., and welcome to day one of our virtual Expo Chattanooga. Here's how today is going to work. All day, we'll broadcast interviews with key business leaders in our community, along with messages from exhibitors right here in the auditorium. Meanwhile, over in the exhibitor hall, you can go visit the many virtual booths that our exhibitors have set up. Learn more about their company and exchange information with them while you're there. Finally, if you want a little more face time to develop your network, you can go hang out in the networking lounge. This Zoom meeting, moderated by Chamber staff, will run all day. But right now, you've joined me in the auditorium. We've got an exciting program planned just for you. Today, we'll be hearing from exhibitors in the following business categories: business services, manufacturing, building, and logistics, tourism, hospitality, food products and retail, education, mentorship, and leadership programs. We're going to spend some time reflecting on the past year and what's coming up in the future. Senator Bob Corker knows a thing or two about what it takes to be the mayor of the Scenic City. Up next, he's going to talk to the newly elected mayor, Tim Kelly, about his priorities for his first year in Chattanooga and what's next for the city.
Well, Donna, thank you. We're in the digs of our new mayor. It's great to be with you. And just to tell you a little bit about how this happened, last year I was part of the expo and was going to do it again this year. And I thought, well, how ridiculous is that to have somebody pontificating about our city when we could have someone, our new mayor, newly elected mayor, talking about what he's going to do for our city. That's just so much interesting for our audience. So thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I would have been perfectly fine to listen to you pontificate.
Well,
I enjoy listening to you pontificate.
I think it's much better to listen to somebody that's going to make something happen for our community. I know the audience is far more interested in that. And just if I can start, how does it feel? How does it feel being in the mayor's office here?
It's a little surreal, honestly. I mean, it's not as strange as it has been for a lot of the rest of the staff, however, because I'm a big believer that you always begin with the end in mind, and I mean,
sure.
This was a plan, very frankly.
Stephen Covey.
That's right. Because I'm a huge Stephen Covey fan, and so yes, it is. It doesn't feel odd to have accomplished what I set out to accomplish. It feels odd to be in this big old office with my name in gold leaf on that transom out there. That's odd. Yeah. I'm not a pomp and circumstance guy in any way, shape, or form. I'm, as I've said many times, much more of a ditch digger than a speech giver. So that part feels odd, as you probably know, coming from private business. There seems to be a little more slack in the rope here than there is when you're doing your own thing in a small office and grinding it out. But I'm getting there. This is only day 2. So
well, very good. Well, we're glad you're here, and I think it's hard for people to understand the energy that comes with having been in a campaign. And the responsibility that you feel to citizens of our community. And I think it's difficult for people who haven't been through that process. But isn't that something that's a different feeling for you in this kind of office than running a business?
It is. It's very different when you're serving the public interest. And we use the term common purpose quite a lot during my campaign, because that's how I look at it. And of course, my campaign was very focused on Chattanooga, because I think Chattanooga is such an extraordinary place. And when you think about serving all of Chattanooga in the interest of Chattanooga, yes, it's a very, very different feeling. But I had a little bit of a head start, as you probably did from back in the day. I know you did, actually, with your various nonprofit work. But my work at Benwood and the Community Foundation was a good preview of that. It puts you in that mindset of working for the public interest. So, and I love that. That's one of the things that caused me to decide to do this, because I like the responsibility. I thrive under pressure. So I'm looking forward to getting to work and putting my back into it and really doing the best I can for the city of Chattanooga.
Well, I know you do. I was struck during the campaign with just the vulnerability that you showed in talking with people about your life and some of the experiences you had that weren't successful. So, I didn't really know you that well. We had crossed paths. I remember us having a conversation at a sort of a crisis moment. I was the lead senator, if you will, trying to deal with the future of the automobile industry.
I remember it well.
And obviously you had some I think, a Cadillac dealership, and there were issues happening. They were, constraining the amount of dealerships. I remember talking during that time, our paths crossed, maybe a little bit about Chattanooga football, a few other things, but I really didn't get to know you until you began to think about running for mayor. And you had not decided yet. You were just thinking about it, which is the way I think civic leaders should think about running for office. And you started talking with me about a book called The New Geography of Jobs. Enrico Moretti had written the book. By the way, you talked to me about it. I then read it and found it fascinating. But I wonder if you want to expand on that.
Sure. Yeah, the book made a big impact on me, obviously, or I wouldn't have recommended it to you. But it was recommended to me by a young man, Joda Tungnapnua, who's now our policy director here at the city, who ran Metro Ideas Project. And the thesis of it is, in essence, that the nature of work fundamentally is changing, as we all know, if you think about it, to become more intellectual and creative in nature. I mean, think about Google or any of these companies that really trade in ideas. And those are given to consolidation in these larger metro areas. So you see the economic growth rate in cities like Nashville and Atlanta, and here we are pinched right in between them, spinning up and getting red hot. While, as Moretti points out, the real peril for mid-sized cities like Chattanooga that are on the bubble is that really we become just a wasteland of low-wage jobs, and those higher-wage jobs are all consolidating in larger cities. So it really scared me, honestly, and I thought, man, this is not a future that I want for Chattanooga, and we really got to get on the front foot in economic development, and we have such incredible assets here in Chattanooga to do battle with, but we've got to be much more focused and intentional about that. And of course, I was on the chamber board at the time and wound up getting a lot of folks at the chamber to read it. So I would recommend it to anybody out there. It's a fantastic book. Now, COVID, of course, has changed the calculus a little bit.
Helped us a lot.
Helped us a lot, and score one for the home team, and we're just going to continue to build on that momentum.
Yeah, I should say we both know, in spite of the tragedy that so many people have dealt with here, the economic impact could be very positive to us.
That's good.
We understand the losses people have dealt with.
Yeah.
One of the other times we met, you brought me a copy of a book called The Daily Stoic, I think. And interestingly, I actually read a passage from it every day. It has tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I do too, and so it's a wonderful book. Stoicism is a very interesting, obviously an old Greek school of philosophy that I guess was made most famous by Marcus Aurelius, who was widely regarded as probably the most successful Roman emperor. But there are a lot of other philosophers in the school, and I think it's a really great meditation on leadership. It has to do with the limits of power, on self-control, on self-knowledge, and it's just a great way to start your day.
I agree.
Yeah, I haven't made it through. I began it, I want to say, in probably May of last year. So I'm about to come full circle, but I'll keep going with it again. That's another one I would recommend to everybody out there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, today's passage was about not getting distracted.
Precisely.
And I guess for a new mayor coming in, that's going to be one of your great challenges, because I know you lay out a lot of plans, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but then life happens, right? I mean, opportunities occur, other kinds of things occur, and so keeping focused, obviously, is a major challenge, and one that I know you'll do. You had an extraordinary runoff race with Kim White, who was a superb candidate also, and also a civic leader and someone who cares deeply about our community. As a matter of fact, we had a plethora of great candidates in the original race, the first race. But y'all had just a great race, and I'm sure that many of the chamber people that are involved, there were a lot of them supporting you, a lot of them supporting her. But what did you learn from Kim during this race?
Well, I was so impressed with her energy, with her stamina, with the way that she conducted herself. We all did polling, and very frankly, it's a lot easier for the person and we were lucky in that we polled ahead for most of the race, if not all of it, depending on the poll you were looking at. But it is the person who is trailing generally who goes negative. And so she could have done that, and she didn't, to her credit. I've always said Chattanooga is an extraordinary place. And the last thing I ever wanted to do was pour acid on the fabric of our civic culture that I love so much. We're members, both of us, Kim and I, members of Downtown Rotary Club, and I think that Rotary Club really in many ways is the embodiment of what of Chattanooga civic culture. It is very nonpartisan, and it does a good job of reminding us always that that Chattanooga is different, right? That we aspire to a higher level of civility, and I think that is what makes Chattanooga extraordinary. Is why we can get things done. So full credit to Kim for the way that she conducted herself through that, because she didn't have to.
You know, I came into this job 20 years ago, and the digs weren't quite so nice. I talked to you, we were down on the first floor, and I'm glad the building really has been redone in the manner that it has. To me, it really demonstrates the real role that our mayor plays in the community. It's the leader of the region, actually, and I think you know that. I mean, you know that well. You know, one of the things that we tried to do was make sure every major initiative was launched, had a person in place within the first 6 months we were there. And then as you begin to see success, you know, you have the ability to reload. You laid out a very extensive agenda. I think most of us read it in the paper. I think you plan to get those all put in place in the first 100 days. It's again very extensive. I wanted to ask the question so that people can understand how you plan to go about it. Some mayors, depending on their style, try to build everything at City Hall. I mean, you know, we chose to build the community and build on the strengths throughout our community, and just felt like that was more durable for the community over the long haul. But both work for people. You know, people have different approaches. What will be your approach, and what can the other community organizations in our city who mean so much to our city, what can they expect from Mayor Kelly?
Well, I should say this. I mean, again, as you alluded to earlier, you know, you knew me a little bit, you know, back in the day when you were running for mayor and so on, but I knew you a lot, and you were a huge inspiration to me back then, and continue to this day. I mean, my administration, very frankly, will be modeled, you know, loosely on yours, in the sense that it will be very, very collaborative. One of the things I knew, I went through the Leadership Tennessee program in 2017, I think, and it was an interesting deal. We went around the state. You know, it's a great program if anybody ever gets a chance to do it. Knoxville, Nashville, Memphis, Johnson City, Chattanooga. Spent a couple of days with community leaders. Got to know Jim Strickland from Mayor of Memphis quite well during that time. Got to be a good friend. And you know, the thing that struck me was if you go to Nashville or Memphis, probably the public sector or the business sector are most influential. What Chattanooga was truly extraordinary, stuck out like a sore thumb when I went through it. I always suspected this, was that our nonprofit community and our foundation community is really the most influential sector in Chattanooga. And we're lucky for that, because we have this, it gives us this keel, you know, for strategic planning that a lot of other cities don't have. And it keeps us from kind of blowing around in the wind, I think, a little bit more. So yes, listen, I am a collaborative manager. I campaigned on that. I know a lot of people, because I can be impatient at times, shall we say. I think sometimes, you know, you hear, oh, Tim can be a real ogre, and I can be if I have to be. And sometimes I have to be. But I am, above all else, I think I've got a special talent for bringing people together and getting things done. And so that is what I'll do. I've already made plenty of phone calls, right, about convening the faith community, the nonprofit community, including the foundation community, and getting back on the front foot to, as you very wisely said, leverage the strength of the entire community to get things done, not only in a more extensive way, but to your point exactly, I don't think that's an obvious thing to everybody, a more durable way. Because if you don't do it with the community, then it's just another program, and it winds up blowing away in the wind. So that is exactly the approach I'll take.
You know, there's so many great organizations in our community, and you know, they just want to know what their role is, isn't it? And you felt that during the campaign, I know. They want somebody to create the vision for them. They all will assume their proper roles. I'm not saying that they might have differences in approaches, but people generally in our community collectively want it to be better, and they just want to know the best way they can play a role that's constructive.
That's exactly right. It is you, I think, Senator, who said, and I used the line many, many times in the course of the campaign, that said the role of a mayor is to be an orchestra conductor. right? And that is precisely as I see it. So that is what I'm going to be doing is bringing that orchestra together and getting them tuned up and playing.
So you've just been in office for a very short amount of time. The runoff, I think, numbers of people that I've talked to really appreciate your comments about if there's a runoff again, how long it should last. I think both of you and Kim, I'm sure, were hoping it was 3 weeks, not 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But you end up in a situation where all of a sudden you're, just a few days after the election, you're mayor. How will you go about gearing up to make all of these myriad of things that you've announced you're going to do happen?
Well, it's extraordinarily difficult, and we will be putting in a ballot initiative either for ranked choice voting, which I'm a big fan of, or at least splitting that period into the 3-week runoff and a 3-week transition. But I'm fortunate in that Brent Goldberg, who was here under Mayor Burke for a few years, has come back to the city with me as my chief of staff. So he's been here, knows the landscape and the map, and we've had a number of people, including Tony Sammons, Jermaine Freeman, and Mar Sullivan, who are going to stay on. So, again, having run many businesses, continuity is hugely important. And so we're managing that, obviously we've got a little bit of a different strategic framework, but we've already had a lot of great meetings and everything's going to be fine. However, right, I mean, part of this was we had, very frankly, Brent, during the course of the campaign, we were all focused on winning the election. We had him off in a broom closet working on transition plans.
Good.
So we had, we were, again, beginning with the end in mind, and we had a pretty good ladder and framework set up, to begin with. So we're hitting the ground running, and we will do all those things. I hope that we, look, if you don't have a goal, you can't hit the goal.
Yeah.
So, I hope that we can hit them all in a timely manner. But I'm a very intentional manager, shall we say? So they've got their marching orders, and I think from what I've gathered, and you all people would know, I'm not trying to follow anybody else's lead or example in the sense that I've said this a bunch during the campaign. I'll say it now once more for the people in the back. I don't have any other future political ambitions. I know you said that at the same time, and so who knows what the future will hold, but I will be probably more engaged as a manager here than typically mayors have been here for quite some time, probably at least since you were here. And I think that'll help because we're meeting daily. We're going to meet with Mayor Coppinger weekly starting Friday. And start working more closely with the county on common initiatives and goals, and so we're going to get a lot done.
You brought it up, and this is about you, not me. When I came into office, I truly, no mayor had been elected statewide to any office in modern history. And when I came in the mayor's office, it truly was a civic endeavor.
Yeah.
Never had thought about being mayor,
Right.
and obviously things happened after that I never even thought of.
Wasn't your fault.
I loved your comments that if you're thinking about future office, you govern with caution. And I just remember we thought, look, let's throw deep on every play. There's no politics here. It's all about the city. But I really did appreciate that. I just want to tell you, and I would think the people of Chattanooga appreciate the fact that you do not plan to lead with caution. You plan, and you're going to make some mistakes, right? I mean,
I will.
You're going to say some things that, you might not have.
Well, yeah, that
we
much
all
you
do
will
that.
be entertained. That much I can assure you.
But the point is, you're going to be laying it all out there, aren't you?
So yeah, I am. So there's as it turns out, we're going to turn this into the Corker Kelly Book Club. But there's another book that you haven't heard this before now, but some folks from Chattanooga have been up to this program. That Sarah Morgan at Benwood has wisely had Chattanooga participate in as a cohort called the Young American Leaders Program. I was fortunate to do that a few years back. And there's one of the guys that runs that program up there named Mitch Weiss, who's written a book called We the Possibility. And what it's about, which I'm sure you'll find fascinating, is public entrepreneurship, which is sort of a new concept. But it's about not managing for probability, where you're managing from caution.
Right.
But managing for possibility. And in order for that to work, you have to create a culture where it's okay to make mistakes. And you have to be a person who is okay and perfectly willing to fade the heat when mistakes are made. And I am. right? I'm perfectly willing to do that, and I'm 100% sure it'll happen. So, but as you say, I do see it as a purely civic endeavor. I love Chattanooga. What excites me as an entrepreneur, again, I said this many times during the campaign, entrepreneurs, it was Andrew Yang that said this. I heard him on the podcast. Whatever your politics are, he's a really smart guy. And he said, entrepreneurs hate wasted potential.
Yep.
And that's me.
No question.
And Chattanooga's got so much potential. I mean, this is I know this is the last job I'm ever going to want. I wanted this job because I see the possibilities. There's so much constructive stuff that we can do here, and I can only do it for 8 years at a maximum. After that, I'll figure out what to do with the rest of my life. But I'm really excited about the things we can get accomplished here.
I don't. I've said this many times, as you know, and I just actually said goodbye to Mayor Burke. Called him, the day after the inauguration. He's driving to Florida to thank him, and hope that his transition in life goes well, and that there are great things that happen beyond this. But from the standpoint of public service, I truly do not believe there is a better position to touch people, to affect their lives, to know the people you're touching, because there are neighborhoods around here. And I hope that this is the most meaningful thing, public service-wise, that you do. But who knows what? I don't hope it. I know it will be, because you've already demonstrated that during the campaign.
I mean, again, Bob, it was you that told me. Oh, you didn't just tell me it. You said many times that it was the best job you ever had, and I believed you when you said it.
Well, so. You're a combination of a civic leader, a business leader. People don't realize this that haven't been in this role, and that just the weight of it, of wanting to help other people. You're a spiritual leader. Exactly. I mean, you're dealing with people in their time of need. It's an incredible place. So with that, speaking as a CEO a minute ago, this is a chamber audience, and I think it's wonderful that they had the opportunity during this first segment to get to know you as a person. And I think it's one of the things that was a differentiator for you. It's just your transparency as to who you were and that kind of thing. And again, I think both of you ran an outstanding race. But I think a lot of times people don't realize that coming into the mayor's office is not different than a CEO coming into a new company for the first time.
Exactly.
And one of the jobs that you have is to assess the strengths of the company, in this particular case, the assets of our community, and then also address the liabilities. And you want to build on the strengths, obviously, and the assets of the city, but you also have to overcome the liabilities. And I'm just wondering at this stage what some of your thoughts are regarding that.
Well, as you say, it is. I have to be careful about laying the business analogies on too thick, because I am not confused, as I've said many times, about business and government. But this part is exactly that. And I've acquired companies before, and of course you look at the assets and liabilities before you jump in and buy a company. And I mean, I would have run for this job, and I do see it that way either way. But I've had a lot of time to think about this, and again, the assets, as I've said many times, I think the main asset, and this sounds like a political line, but it's not, is really Chattanooga's people.
I agree.
Because as I've said, also, one of the really interesting kind of meditations that hit me early on in the campaign was that Chattanooga is full of people, really talented people, that could be in other markets making more money or on some higher rung of a career ladder, right? But they're not. They're here. They're here, I think, because they realize that there's more to life, right? And because they value something other than that, very, I'd say selfish in a bad term. I don't fault anybody for going for the highest offer or, wanting to move to Atlanta and work for a corporate battleship. But what it infers is that they value something higher than themselves. And I think it's that sense of community. And I think that's why Chattanooga really is able to accomplish things that other cities aren't able to accomplish. So that's the main one, right? The second one, of course, is our outdoor assets, right? Our physical location, geographical location, combined with our physical assets, our river and our mountains. It's in business we talk about what is your. I went through business school late in life, and I had a professor down at Emory who was extraordinary, Robert Kazanji, and he would say, you really need to get just brutally serious about peeling the onion down to think about what a company's or an organization's sustainable competitive advantage is. What do you have that nobody else can take from you or copy, right? And for Chattanooga, it is our setting. It's our setting and our geography. Kinco famously says, 60% of the population is a day's drive from Chattanooga. It's one of the reasons my Honda motorcycle store has been so successful. I stumbled into that one. People can get here. So that's our not only our physical assets, but our physical location is another huge asset. This is a little off, but our cultural and artistic community here. I mean, I remember that when VW came, and we did the thing at the Hunter, is it up there?
Yeah.
They were very plain about that, right? And that all sort of goes to what we would call in this very muddy, which I hate this term, which is why I haven't used it before now, but quality of life.
Yeah.
And but that is our ace of spades. It's the strongest card we have to play.
Well, I appreciate your comments about the people here and how they could be other places. I remember I lived in Nashville for a while. I was commissioner of finance and wanted to come back here. My 32-year-old daughter, Emily's been in New York for 10 years. She's now back in Chattanooga. And I think the thinking, and just in talking with her the other day, I think people want to be in a place where they can plant a shade tree that others can sit under. I sense that's what you want to do as mayor. I think that's what successful mayors do. Instead of sitting under a shade tree others have planted. And I think that's been the Chattanooga way, and I think that's why we've moved ahead so well. And yet we have a whole lot of work to do, as you know.
We do.
So let's talk about this. How do you plan to go about recruitment of jobs? I think, both you and Kim and others talked about our need to really strengthen that. How do you plan to go about it?
Well, Kim and I were 100% on the same page there. I mean, I see the mayor's job to be the chief advocate and salesperson, and so I look forward to working very closely with the chamber, as I've said many times through the course of the campaign. If they need me on an airplane the next day, I'm on the airplane the next day. And again, I think it starts with a little bit of a strategic deep dive with the rest of the community to kind of narrow down what is really, in a broader sense, other than just a thumbnail sketch, what our competitive advantage is, and then hit the road selling it, right? And really, I was my friend Ted Alling sent me a podcast the other day about talking about what Miami's doing, and Francis Suarez down there, the mayor, and how he, it's funny. I couldn't help but laugh a little bit because the fellow doing the podcast said, he's like a startup CEO. And I thought, well, I've been a startup CEO, right? I can one up that. And I think if we take that approach, we'll do quite well.
Yeah, and there's tremendous opportunity there. So then when we talk about recruitment, we always have the issue of existing business. I mean, most of our jobs come from existing business, right?
Yeah.
And there ends up being this rub. Existing business also has a labor force. Right now it's constrained, right? I mean, for the kind of jobs we need to have. And so then how do we help develop the labor force to deal with the needs of our great existing businesses, which are the backbone of the community, and at the same time have the ability to recruit businesses from other places that really add so much energy to the community?
Yeah. Well, that, of course, is the thing that a lot of people don't see is the supply side of this from a labor force perspective is a huge issue, and it is an urgent issue, and I talked about this a lot in the campaign. So I look forward to working with the Chamber and Chat State and UTC and Dr. Johnson at the Hamilton County School System to really get as engaged in workforce development as we possibly can. Because we've got to be, I mean, look, and you're killing multiple birds with one stone. One of the big initiatives we talked about during the campaign was building wealth, rebuilding the middle class in the community, specifically the African American middle class in the community. So that goes back to education and opportunity. So I don't know of a bigger no-brainer, low-hanging fruit, than connecting people to opportunity a lot of times, right? You've got certificate programs and training that you can provide for folks to take them from minimum wage jobs to $18, $20 an hour jobs. The company's happy. You've created wealth for the average Chattanoogan, and everybody's happy. So it's not a simple task, but we'll be doing both things at once. And I know it is a major issue because talking to people during the campaign, I talked to a couple of light manufacturing companies here whose main issue was, hey, don't go too fast, on economic development because you're going to basically cause inflation in the labor force here. And to some extent, we're seeing it happen already, right? So we got to get people, for the record, back to work.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing that. We're going to announce a director of community health, which we've said the city's needed for a while, and it's a woman who is, I think the credentials are going to just blow people away, how qualified she is, and that's going to allow us to build an off-ramp to normalcy, to get people back to work, and then really hit the ground running on workforce development.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah.
We had a reputation, and you mentioned Ted Alling, and he and Barry and others have done such a great job with their companies, and then some of the things they did to help spur some venture capital. We had a real reputation here as a startup community. We certainly have had some great successes, but it feels to me that that's waned some. Again, I can look around and see some great companies that have been started by local people and other people we've recruited to town. But what are your thoughts on just the whole venture startup status of where we are today?
I have been there. I have lived it. My startup, ZipFlip, won a pitch competition out at Edmunds.com out in Santa Monica a few years back, and could have had an offer to go to Silicon Valley, come here, get investment from a VC fund. We're like, no, we're going back to Chattanooga and to take our chances. And that eventually pivoted to SocialBot, which is now a different startup, which is quite successful, different story. Point is, yes, the startup community here, which had such momentum back in the day, really did. I wouldn't say it fell apart, but it sort of retreated into the corners. And but the assets are still there, and I think we have a real opportunity to reboot it and refocus it, not just on software development and the stuff that's kind of shiny, but on creating opportunity and resources for more sort of rank and file local entrepreneurs. Yeah, I mean, again, I taught new venture creation over at UTC. I was a gig tank mentor. It is my world. So again, Rome wasn't rebuilt in a day, but we will be working hard to reconsolidate and make sure we're not duplicating effort in that entrepreneurial ecosystem to see that it's successful.
I think we still have a reputation as being very strong in that area, but I think you're right that we've got to add some meat to that.
We do,
and get it back into the place that where we can really talk substance.
Back to Moretti's thesis for the new geography of jobs. If you're following along at home, the other piece of his thesis, the really interesting piece, is that if you think of if you're doing economic development, you need what? You need capital and you need talent, right? Chicken and the egg. And you would think, well, which one's chicken, which one's the egg, the eternal debate. But Moretti says that the chicken is actually talent, right? That if you can attract talent, the capital will come. And that's where we have this very perhaps providential moment post-COVID, where if we can use our incredible natural assets and quality of life to attract the best talent to Chattanooga, a little bit of an article of faith of Mr. Moretti's, academic thesis, but in theory, the capital will follow the talent because the other issue that is missing here is, you don't have a Goldman Sachs office here. There aren't any real, we've got some private equity houses, right? But we don't have meaningful venture capital here. But in theory, that's a movable feast. And if we can attract the talent, the capital will follow.
Well, listen, we could talk more about manufacturing. It seems like we've been on a real run there. We need to continue that. I know there's a lot of office opportunities for us here. But in closing, and thank you for talking so extensively with all of us today, what is it you'd like to see the Chamber do to support your efforts? And what kind of closing comments would you like to leave us with here today?
Well, I would just say, I would flip that around, and of course I have done this, and ask the Chamber how I can help them. Now that's what it boils down to. They, again, I've been on the Chamber board a couple times on the executive committee. I know they're working hard, and we will be refocusing the economic development department here, at the city, to really help the Chamber achieve our mutual goals. And so again, and it won't be a case of not invented here, where again we will take a very collaborative approach to this, and that I think is what I'd leave everybody with, right? We need to get some spring back in our step, and and we've got every reason to believe in the future of Chattanooga. We're going to get our mojo back, and we are looking into a very, very bright future. So I feel honored and privileged for the opportunity to lead the city during this time. As my dad used to say, timing in life is everything. So you know, I'll take it, and I will shoulder the responsibility, and I will do my dead level best to make sure that we make this city everything it can be.
Well, as a citizen, like everyone else here who will benefit from strong leadership, I wish you well.
Thank you.
Our families here wish you well, and thank you for offering yourself in this way and being so transparent with our chamber office.
Well, thank you. And I mean, it's not too strong a statement, and it's certainly not for this to say that I would not and could not have done it without you and your example of leadership. And I think that is what makes this city great, is that we have this legacy of intergenerational leadership and strong civic culture. So thank you.
Thank you. Best wishes.
Yes.